What are you doing under the stairs? Oh my goodness, let's go. We have things we need to discuss. Welcome back everyone. Slim Sunny's back, and today we're going to be discussing something really frustrating, to me at least. So, the other day I was just doom scrolling, as we all do, just enjoying myself, a good old doom scroll, going through everything, trying to figure out exactly what to do with my life. No, I'm joking. I was just flicking through some videos, and I came across a specific video by quite a popular YouTuber, and it's just a normal YouTube short, and what it says, well, that's just my biggest problem with the video. It doesn't say much, but what it implies is even worse.
What?
The video that I will share shortly is it's technically just this guy essentially looking at Google Maps at a specific area in South Africa through the years, and this specific area in South Africa progressively gets worse and worse and worse, and the whole tone of the video just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me. So before we get started, without further ado, here's the video.
This is in South Africa. This is how it's been doing over the years. 2009, 2017. Okay. Wow. It's been decolonized. That's great.
Right. So there it is. You see the video that frustrates me so much. And really, why does it frustrate me? Right? It's just some random guy essentially saying, look how bad this area has gotten. But it's what he's not saying which is what frustrates me so much. We know what's implied. We know what he means when he shows just this one aspect of South Africa. We know what he means by, oh, it's been decolonized. What? It's so facetious.
That makes me so angry.
So it's obvious, right, that this video wasn't taken in good faith. It wasn't filmed in good faith. What is he trying to say? Well, essentially what he's trying to say is that South Africa is getting worse. Look at this particular part of South Africa. It's just getting worse and worse, and it's been decolonized. Now, this is just so unnecessary. It's not journalism. Nobody ever thought it was journalism, but we just need to think, right? We need to sit and think on this YouTube short, what is he trying to say? What is he trying to convey? What message is he trying to convey? Because I think it'll be naive to think that this YouTuber just did this because he was interested in a specific area in South Africa. It's clear. What he's trying to say is that South Africa is going downhill, and ever since it was decolonized, it has essentially been ruined, and it's just gone straight down the drain. Now, coming from clearly an American YouTuber who I would bet, now I can't guarantee this, but I would bet has never been to South Africa. I would bet he's never been to Africa. I would bet that he can't even name 15 African countries off the top of his head. So here we have a naive person who just reacts to a video showing a very specific area, saying that, oh, it's horrible, saying, oh, look how terrible South Africa is. Oh, South Africa's really gone down the drain. South Africa's really decolonized, and when it became decolonized, it became a real shithole. That's essentially what he's saying, right? He doesn't even have to say those words, but that's exactly what he's trying to say in that video. And the important thing that we need to remember here is when he says the word decolonized, what does he really mean? So, South Africa is quite famous, well, I should say infamous, for having a system from roughly the 1960s to the 1990s called apartheid. So this was a system of segregation that split the black African population, the white South African population, the Indian South African population, and every other race, and it split them into separate sort of areas. Now obviously it wasn't done in a, oh, you can have this nice area, you can have this nice area. No, all the white people got put, which was a tiny amount of the population, got put in the best areas, the best economic areas, and all the black Africans were pushed out to what was coined homelands.
Sounds pretty racist to me.
They're racist.
So this brutal, repulsive, repugnant regime took away black South Africans' rights. It took away black South Africans' identity. It made life for such a huge part of the population horrible. There were things like the Sharpeville massacre. We have a holiday in South Africa in June called Youth Day. And the reason why we have a public holiday called Youth Day is because some black kids were protesting in Soweto Township in Johannesburg, and they were shot and killed. And Hector Peterson, there's footage, famous footage of him being carried after being murdered by the police. This was an evil, horrible time in South Africa's history. And it was perpetrated by the white minority, by my ancestors. Now, I say ancestors, not that long ago, even though I was born into a free South Africa, my parents were not. They were born within the system. And what I'm trying to say is that South Africa really went through a lot, and the South African black population had to fight for freedom. They had to fight to get equal rights, and many of them were just treated horribly. There's a famous author and activist called Steve Biko who wrote a book called I Write What I Like. It's a really good book. I'll put the link in the description down below. But it's a very telling book of how he believed that black South Africans could gain their rights, could gain their place in their own country. Steve Biko was beaten to death in a jail cell. He was naked and he was beaten to death. So this is the sort of regime we're looking at, right? This dangerous, horrible regime. And then in the 1990s, famously, Nelson Mandela is released from jail. South Africa has its first democratic election, and all of a sudden, apartheid completely disintegrates. And Nelson Mandela brings the nation together, and we have to start building on the foundation of apartheid. So here is where things get rather complicated, and here's where I need to really unpack why this video that this American YouTuber made is so problematic. Just back on that, by the way, so when he says decolonized, does he mean this is what South Africa looks like when it's not going through apartheid? Is that what he's saying? Is he saying South Africa was better during apartheid? South Africa was better when millions of black people were being oppressed? Is that what decolonized means? Because if that is what it means, then clearly this is a racist YouTuber, and that's a racist opinion to have. This is what I'm trying to say. This small YouTube short, it hardly says anything, but it says so much. It says so much, and it's pandering this idea that South Africa, ever since apartheid, is going downhill, this weird racist right-wing idea. And it's so infuriating because it's not true, it's not what's happening in the country, and if you don't understand what's going on, please don't make these strange comments like South Africa is decolonized when you see footage of an area that's gone downhill.
Shut up. Just shut up.
I think that the whole notion is, it's unacceptable. I mean, there are areas all over the world, in Europe, in Asia, in North America, where there has been a degeneration. Things have gotten worse. Things have not been looked after. These places exist all over the world. But when something like that happens in Africa, there's always this subtle racism of, oh, you know what? If white people aren't there, it's not great. Well, all of this is just wrong. So let's get into the facts. Let's just get into the facts. So we start off by saying, I'm just going to preface this by saying, now in the 1990s, you have, I think, 4 million white South Africans. An economy that was built for 4 million white South Africans. An electricity system, a water system, and infrastructure that was built to hold and help 4 million white people. And then in the 1990s, 45 million Africans then gained freedom. So now we have this economy which looks so amazing, it looks so fantastic. Sure, it's fantastic. It's built on the backs of 45 million people for the privilege of 5 million people. And now we're saying these 45 million people now need equal opportunity. They need equal rights. And to think that everything is just going to go smoothly is naive and it's silly. Electricity grid was built for 5 million people. It now needs to take on an additional 45 million people. The water system, the infrastructure, all of that needed to adapt. It needed to grow. And it's way easier said than done to just say, oh, well, they just should have done it. Well, no, it's far more complicated than that, because building that infrastructure, it costs money, and taxing people and putting things in structure and putting things in place to build structures and trying to make sure that you're lifting this entire group of people out of poverty into a healthy standard of living. It's so complex. The whole situation is such a delicate game of balancing acts, right? Where you have a lot of white people who are paying a lot of the taxes because they have a lot of the resources, because of the advantages they gained in apartheid, and they have a lot of the businesses, they have a lot of the land. How do we now get black South Africans to also start having their own wealth, having their own businesses, and how do we have them grow together with white South Africans without there being this racist background and everyone wanting to work together? It's very difficult. And contrary to popular belief, South Africa is doing it. And I have the stats to prove it. Poverty in South Africa has dramatically decreased over the last 30 years. The GDP has dramatically increased over the last 30 years. People's access to internet has increased exponentially. People's access to sanitary water, or better sanitary conditions, that has increased dramatically. People's access to fresh water has increased dramatically. People's access to tertiary education has dramatically increased. So South Africa, on paper, is 100% getting better. The economy is growing. People are getting richer. And yet, there's still this perverse idea that South Africa is just going down the drain. It's so much more complicated than that. And now, I can hear people saying, oh, well, you know, you're painting an incorrect picture of South Africa. And I don't think I am, because I'm giving you facts and I showed you the graphs to prove it. But that's not to say South Africa doesn't have its own problems. Obviously, all countries have their own problems. South Africa has a very high crime rate. It has a very high murder rate. It does still have rampant poverty. It does still have a lot of social issues. And I think that South Africa is working on it. It's 100% working on it. More people are being housed now than ever have been housed. More people now are working proper jobs that they studied for. And granted, the unemployment rate is horrible. Granted, you know, the economy isn't perfect, but it's so difficult to start from where South Africa did start. And we need to allow time. We need to allow patience. You know, South Africa is growing. It's doing okay. It's not doing amazingly. Yes, there's corruption. Yes, there is tender misuse of funds. And there are lots of problems that I will admit are not making things easy for South Africans. And everyday South Africans are still struggling. Inflation is still increasing. But to think that the whole of South Africa is just going downhill it's a fallacy, because by most measurable facts, it isn't going downhill. It is improving, albeit slowly, albeit not as fast as everyone thinks. The economy is still growing. People are still getting better educations. And we just need to allow time, and we need to allow South Africa to get on its own 2 feet and let South Africa grapple with its history. But these types of films that this American has uploaded, what is it saying other than Africa's a shithole? It's not saying anything. It's not saying how amazing the people are. It's not saying how resilient South Africans are. It's not saying how beautiful South Africa is as a culture and as a people. It's just saying life was better under apartheid, which is a horrible thing to say. And I think we need to do better. And I genuinely think if you don't have anything to add positively, then just don't comment. There's no point. You're just making everything so much worse. You're just making everything more unhappy, and I don't understand what the point of that would be. What is the point of bringing down an entire nation just with your weird little comment? And again, I'm also not saying that I'm against people criticizing South Africa. I'm not against criticism, fair criticism. I'm not against fair, freedom of speech and people saying how they feel about a certain situation. But I do think that if you're going to criticize, you have to be fair. And this wasn't even a critique though, was it? It was just a reaction video with a little tinge of racism, which doesn't help anyone and isn't helping society at large. That is my rant for today. I hope it wasn't too boring. If you have any opinions, please comment down below. That's Slim signing out. I hope you guys have a lovely week. I'll see you guys later. Bye.